Good evening, and welcome to April 16, 2018 Valley View School District Board Meeting. Mr. Bedurtis, would you please lead us in the pledge? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Perro, could you please read the affirmation of the Board of Education mission statements and the board beliefs?
Our mission is to empower all learners to be college and career ready and to develop, grow, and achieve as productive citizens.
Thank you. Dr. Mitchum, the agenda, please.
Yes, I'd like to ask that the board approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Any nays? The ayes have it. Mr. Gerzafi, the Treasury's report, please.
Treasurer's Action Report 5.1 for the month of March 2018 includes the financial reports, balance sheets, summary of revenue and expenditures, as well as the interim obligation payments totaling $4,256,376.92 for your action this evening.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Campbell? Yes. Member Badouris?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes.
Treasurer's Action Report 5.2 is the schedule of bills for the month of April. We have 6 funds represented. Total bills payable, $2,256,236.25. Need approval.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell? Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes.
We've got Treasurer's Information Report, Summary of Investments for March, the State Funding Update 5.4 for March as well. Also included is the All Schools Trust Account activity for February. If you've got any questions on those information reports, I'll be happy to answer them at this time.
Looks like there's no questions. Okay. Consent agenda items, Dr. Mitchum?
Yes, I'd like to ask that the board approve consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.6. 6.1 board meeting minutes for 3/26/18. 6.2 executive session meeting minutes for 3/26/18. 6.3 student activity contract approval request, Jane Addams with Scholastic Book Fairs. 6.4 gifts for Romeoville High School and District Technology Department. 6.5 trips for Bolingbrook High School, and 6.6 intergovernmental agreement extension with New Lenox School District number 122. I ask that the board approve these consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Yep. Any discussions or questions? Hearing none, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Yes. Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes. Okay, student and staff recognition. We have the boys bowling all-state, Dr. Piskevich from Bolingbrook, please.
Good evening, board, community, colleagues. All right. Dr. Jason Paskevich, tonight I have the honor of recognizing a couple of our students. I'm going to start off by recognizing our first coach, Mr. Rob Brost, for boys basketball.
Thank you, Dr. Paskevich, Dr. Mitchell, members of the board. It's my honor to be here tonight to recognize 3 student athletes who most of you may know as basketball players. However, if you only know them as basketball players, that would be a little bit short-sighted. These are 3 of the best students, 3 of the best citizens, and 3 of the best human beings that walk the halls of Bolingbrook High School on a daily basis. I'm proud of our team and our accomplishments, but I'm also proud of the individuals that they are off the floor. And these 3 exemplify all those qualities as well. We have 3 of them here tonight. All 3 were voted All-State by the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association. Tyler Cochran. Caleb Thornton. And Joseph Yesufu.
Thank you, Coach Brost. If I could also add, that's a great group of students over there. I mean, Coach Brost started to touch on it, but I've had Tyler since he was in 6th grade, and Joseph, I believe, since 7th grade. And Caleb was a fine addition, but what a great group of kids academically also. Next, we have Coach Smith to introduce our girls basketball All-State.
Good evening, board. Good evening, fellow members. I'd like to introduce our IBCA Girls All-State players. My senior class here led us to a 25-5 record this year, taking us to the super sectional game. Not only are they great, like Coach Bro said, not only are they great basketball players, but they're great students as well. They've been an impact to our community in Bolingbrook, as well as been a positive influence to the Valley View School District. First up, I would like to introduce Gabby Smith. Gabby will be continuing her basketball and academic career at Ball State University on a full athletic scholarship. Next, we have Jahari Smith. Jahari also received a full scholarship ride to Central Michigan University as well this fall. Thank you.
Round of applause for Coach Smith. Coach Smith, last summer, I said, hey, are we going to bounce back with the girls' basketball team? He said, oh, yeah. I said, how do you know? He goes, we have the girls. I came to practice. I think I'm a pretty good three-point shooter. So I challenged the girls. I said, hey, who thinks they can beat me in a three-point contest? Well, Gabby hopped right up, and yep, she beat me. I bought Gatorades for the whole team. Nice group of young ladies over there. Next, we have Mr. Wayne with boys bowling.
It's my privilege to recognize Alex Acosta again as a boys bowler. Alex has been our team leader for basically the last 4 years on our bowling team. Alex came in second place at the All-State IHSA Boys Bowling Tournament down in O'Fallon, Illinois. He only lost by 2 pins to the overall champion. He bowled a 226 average for the day. We're really proud of him. This Wednesday, he'll be signing his letter of intent to bowl at St. Xavier University on a bowling and academic scholarship. So we're really proud of Alex Acosta.
Thanks. How about a round of applause for Coach Wayne? As Alex heads over, I asked him if he could beat me at bowling, and he said left-handed. He's right-handed. Are we going to have Miss Payton down? Miss Payton and Axel, please come to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Darletta Flukas Payton. I am the Valley View School District Director of College and Career Readiness and the proud chairperson of the DuPage County AXO program. 1 month ago tomorrow, 51 students from 13 area high schools competed for top honors in various categories in the areas of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, business, humanities, performing arts, and visual arts. That was our 2018 annual high school competition for the DuPage County AXO program that was held at the College of DuPage. AXO is a year-long program that was created to encourage high academic and cultural achievement among high school students of African descent. The program features 3 components: mentoring, academic achievement, and competition. More than 400 attendees, including parents, AXO alumni, volunteers, partners, and local elected officials, celebrated the hard work of the AXO students at our awards banquet that was held the next day at the Bolingbrook Golf Club. During the banquet, local high school students were announced as gold medal winners, along with numerous silver and bronze medalists. Included in that group were the 5 students that we are honoring tonight. DuPage County AXO has emerged as a top-performing STEM program in the nation as a result of our partnership with Argonne National Laboratory that has stretched our students' abilities as they perform STEM research at a high level of rigor with the guidance of their Argonne mentors. In addition to STEM, our students in the humanities, performing arts, visual arts, and business also continue to carry on the legacy of excellence, with DuPage County AXO always being a major competitor and medal winner at the national competition. This year's competition was our most competitive ever, and I want to acknowledge the parents and volunteers of the program that came out tonight to support the students, because they are the ones that help make the student success possible. With their support, these students are now getting ready to compete at the National AXO competition that will take place in San Antonio, Texas in July. Please join me in congratulating the following students as they come forward to be acknowledged. Alexis Johnson, gold medalist in oratory and sculpture. Erica Neal, gold medalist in drawing. Bryson Rivers, gold medalist in chemistry. Bryson's really happy to be up there. He is one of our students that was also in our middle school program for junior AXO, and he worked really hard. All of the students worked really hard, but Bryson has been gunning for that gold medal for 3 years now. Jordan Sharber, gold medal in dramatics. And Avia Weidman, double gold medalist, poetry written and poetry performance.
For those of you that don't know Ms. Payton very well, this is an organization, and these kids are something that she's extremely passionate about. Last year we went to the awards banquet with Dr. Mitchum, myself, Ms. Payton, and BHS was the school of the year for AXO. That's a big deal in DuPage County, all the Naperville, all those schools. And Bolingbrook High School was the best. And I think it has a lot to do with your dedication to these kids. It comes down to the parents and the students, but this is a group of kids that when you ask them to do something, they're gonna go above and beyond and do better than what you asked. But most importantly, they're just good kids. And thank you for your leadership, Ms. Payton.
Academic performance.
High academics, so wicked smart.
Thank you
All right,
very
thank you,
much.
Ms. Payton.
Okay, we have the Pillars of Valley View. STP Principal, Ms. Alexson.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Mitchum, senior leadership, and community members. It is with great honor that I present Jamie Carney-Leith, speech-language pathologist at the STEP campus and Brooks Middle School, the Valley View Pillar of Excellence Award. Jamie has shown great dedication and passion in her serving students with disabilities for the past 16 years. She's successful in her field as she works collaboratively with her students and colleagues to determine students' interests, area of strength, need, and how to best serve them. She is creative in finding various ways to service her students as she does so in a variety of settings, such as small group, large group, individually, in the community, as well as at job sites. In order to meet the needs of her high-functioning students, she's created a book study group for students to have the opportunity to learn about the importance of appropriate social skills within the workplace setting. Jamie's creativity and spirit can consume any learner or observer as her lessons are engaging and fun. She's reflective in her professional practice and is always striving to improve. She's a member of various groups such as the Informed SLP and participates in the language learning and education special interest groups through ASHA. Jamie has served as the community leader, a committee leader for the district's speech-language pathologist handbook committee for the past 5 years. She's also a member of the STEP Building Impact team and a member of the student resource team at both STEP and Brooks Middle School. Jamie supports her students, families, and community as she attends extracurricular and fundraising events at STEP, such as the Chicagoland Transition events, transition nights, and exit ceremonies. Jamie is student-centered, reliable, and maintains a growth mindset and is seen amongst her peers as a leader. It is with great honor that I present her the Valley View Pillar of Excellence Award. Congratulations, Jamie. Nicole Passioni, a 12th year vision itinerant teacher, travels throughout the district assisting students with visual impairments from the Early Childhood Center all the way through the STEP campus. In order to service such a wide variety of students, one must possess many great skills such as time management, flexibility, dedication, and rigor. I've witnessed Nicole's ability to do this with ease as she adapts classroom materials, incorporating different lessons to keep students interested during her Braille lessons and keyboarding lessons. She completes functional vision assessments, learning media assessments, and reports her findings in terms of determining if students are eligible for services. Nicole works collaboratively with the other vision itinerant in the district, as well as attends monthly meetings with 13 other vision itinerants and the vision administration. She keeps up to date on her field and is constantly communicating and working alongside of her students' teachers, classroom aides, one-on-one aides, as well as related service providers to ensure her students are able to participate in the curriculum as their peers do. Nicole trains her colleagues so they may best serve her students by embedding best practices within the vision field within their daily routines. She goes above and beyond by planning field trips for students with visual impairments, and she's even created a Braille library for a kindergarten student of hers. This year, Nicole was awarded the 2017 Teacher of Excellence Award from the National Federation for the Blind. She was nominated by one of her students' parents. Nicole is always professional, friendly, creative, and most importantly, she's an advocate for her students. I want to thank you for your passion and persistence in educating our learners with visual impairments, Nicole. I'm proud to present you with the Valley View Pillar of Excellence Award as it's greatly deserved. Congratulations.
Okay, kindergarten staff celebration. Mr. Herder.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, Dr. Mitchum, members of senior leadership, and the community. We have a very exciting recognition opportunity this evening for 4 of our kindergarten educators that we will introduce as well, and you'll have a chance to hear directly from them. They were recently involved in an exciting research project, and so there's something called the Ounce of Prevention Fund, which focuses on early childhood education, political advocacy, and research in terms of early childhood learning. And the district was approached by the Ounce of Prevention Fund along with the magazine publication Joyful Learning about our work in the kindergarten classroom with students in terms of joyful play while maintaining a rigorous curriculum and a rigorous system of assessment of student learning, both socially and emotionally and academically. We were asked to provide educators from Valley View who would be able to contribute to this research project and ultimately would have their voice published in this edition of Joyful Learning. Here's a quote from the article, and online in the board presentation you can read the entire article, you can also read the entire study or just a brief summary of the study, but you can see here these 4 educators were on the cutting edge of implementing Illinois' kindergarten readiness assessment for the past several years. If you ask them about the impact of the assessment on their classroom practice, they'll all give the same answer, and this was the most exciting part to me. More joy, more play, and more student learning. And so this exemplifies what all of our kindergarten educators have been focused on for the last several years, both through implementing state assessments in terms of observing their students' skills in a variety of different areas, and engaging in a significant amount of professional development both in and out of the classroom. And so I would just like to introduce and thank Stephanie Ike, Patsy Guzman, Shannon Lunardini, and Ashley Voland for their work both with their students but also as representatives of all of our kindergarten teachers. The quotes from them in the article are pretty spectacular in terms of their expertise around what helps kindergarten students learn. And we just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize them here in front of the board and give you a chance to hear a bit about their day-to-day work in their kindergarten classroom.
Good evening, Dr. Mitchum and board members. It was a great honor to be asked to be part of this interview for the magazine. I've been with Valley View for 6 years and 5 years with the new Kindergarten Individual Developmental Survey, the Kids Report Card, and it has taught me how to teach in a different way in which the children learn best. It's more of the whole child. And the students, I've learned to teach them in a way where they're learning through play. They still have that rigor, but they just don't know it, but they're having fun while doing it. So it's been a great experience and getting all the professional development that we've been receiving to best teach our little people, as I call them. So it's been a great honor.
Good evening. Play-based learning, I think sometimes we think the word play and then we don't really correlate that with learning, but it really is learning as well as play, and they're in their element, so they really are putting everything they have into it through exploration and problem solving and manipulation of objects and different tools, and that does lead them to have that student voice. one year I had a student come up to me and ask me a question during playtime, and before I even was able to get an answer out, I had another student say, "Can I please help them with that?" And I said, "Sure, go ahead." So it just gives them that confidence in learning because they are in their element when they are doing play-based learning.
Good evening. I'm just going to kind of piggyback off of what they said here. It was a privilege to be a part of this interview with the magazine, and I have been with the district for 4 years now, so I kind of came into teaching right at the flip of bringing in this play-based learning, and I, from 4 years ago to now, can say that there's been a huge difference in these children, not only academically, but social-emotionally as well, and the students are learning to become better problem solvers and kind of taking more initiative into their own learning, and that the learning has turned more from teacher-led to student-led. And going along with what was already said, that the students are learning through play and not really realizing that they're learning. And one example I have of that is in math, like we can sit with these students, and if they're building an object or building something with blocks, they might not really realize that in there there's so much mathematics in that. So I can sit down and have a conversation with these students, asking them, what shapes are you using with those blocks? How many blocks did you use to build something? So I can assess these students while they're thinking that they're just playing with blocks. So it's been awesome just to kind of change, you know, the way we're doing things in the classroom so that it's more developmentally appropriate for these students, where we can still get that academics in there and then be able to assess them in a different way.
Good evening. I have been teaching kindergarten for 12 years, but in the district for 5. And in my last school, we did not do play-based. And I can honestly say that the student achievement in Valley View is a lot higher than where I was teaching before, just based on the students' confidence and then their ability to communicate with each other and share, and just having, I think the confidence is probably the biggest thing. And then I also think that there's a correlation between play-based learning and then the responsive classroom, which we've been really working to incorporate this year. So they're able to find their voice, feel confident with their voice, and then share their voice throughout their time of playing, and then during like morning meeting and different aspects of our day.
So you can see how focused all 4 of these educators are on their students, but we really are here this evening to recognize them for all their efforts. So a round of applause. Thank you so much.
The high school student board liaison report. We don't have a report from Bolingbrook's tonight, so we'll just have Romeoville.
Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Christian Aranda, and to start off, I'd like to say that we had our first day back today after a well-deserved spring break. As we step back into the final weeks of our school year, we are preparing for our SAT exams. Students and staff are working towards the goal of ensuring all of our students are career and college ready by preparing for the upcoming SAT exams. Our underclassmen have been working with their teachers to ensure that all feel confident and prepared to take this assessment. Also working towards the goal of our students being college and career ready. Our AP students are preparing to begin the AP exams in May. Many AP classes have held study sessions over spring break, and last Friday was the AP push lock-in. Our Best Buddies program held the Best Buddy Awareness week before spring break. The program sold shirts, created spiritware to promote unity and awareness, and collaborate among our student body. This Best Buddies week led to creating a safe, secure, and optimal learning environment for us all, as well as advocating partnerships with our families and community. Our MCJROTC program presented the colors at the annual State of Village event, and we are proud of their involvement in many community events. Mother Nature has played havoc on our spring sports teams with many cancellations and rescheduling happening over the past week. We have incredibly busy last 6 weeks planned, and look forward to giving the highlights at our May board meeting. Thank you for your time, everyone.
The young lady in the front, are you from Bowling? Give your report. Thank you. We didn't realize you were here. Yeah.
I apologize about that.
Greetings, my name is Angel Lee, and it seems like I'm the only BHS liaison here, and my report is brief, so I apologize. Since the SATs are coming up next week, I think it is important to touch on the topic. I have enrolled into the after-school SAT prep classes available at Bolingbrook High School every Wednesday since January. The idea of the class has always been an excellent implement BHS has to offer, but has a limited amount of resourcefulness. What I mean by that is that we have these excellent teachers come in and attempt to prepare us for the money-breaking SAT, but the program only allows for each subject to be touched on for 4 hours during its whole duration. Spending any time practicing for the SAT will guarantee improvement, but is not a drastic improvement if it's only for a short amount of time. One of the goals of this school district is to ensure that all students are college and career ready. The SAT most definitely is a major component for college readiness. Hence, I suggest that we extend the SAT practice program by starting a program within the first semester. That way, students are able to have more coverage on each subject and the average SAT score will increase. I apologize if this seems negative because there's no way that the SAT prep classes are negative. They are amazing. However, we can always improve and be stronger. Moving along, let's air out positive information. As you all may know, or just in case you didn't, the National Honor Society at Bolingbrook High School is truly something special. Recently, we teamed up with the amazing Jimmy Choi by holding the Shake It Off 5K run right at our high school. A copious amount of NHS students were able to help 900 participants with the event, and we raised over $140,000. This is a huge accomplishment since this money is raised for Parkinson's disease. Along with that, it is always a necessity to speak about how certain teachers help maintain the goal of retaining a high-impact workforce. I am not exaggerating when I say that all of my teachers this year are completely incredible, but I will keep it short and mention two of them, Mrs. Danielle Speciale and Mrs. Janet Shivkovny. Mrs. Speciale has always been loved by her students due to her wicked humor, her diligence, her ability to connect with others, and her intelligence. Coming into her class, I was already a good writer, but she has helped my writing to be more than good, and she was always clear on how to excel in her class. Along with that, she is very attentive to the feelings of others, so students can always rely on her to be caring. Last year, she had the highest AP language and composition test passing rate, with 69% of her students receiving a 3, 4, or 5 on the test. Furthermore, Mrs. Shivkovny is a delight as well. She tells the cheesiest jokes and laughs all the time, but she has somehow made honors pre-calculus a wonderful class to be in. She is probably the sweetest person at BHS, and she has always made herself available to help her students. Both of these teachers are commendable and hold a special place in my heart, so I'll close by saying that Bolingbrook High School does an amazing job at keeping amazing teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Lazan report from my left. From my right.
Okay, there we are. Excuse me, I attended the National School Board Association Conference in San Antonio, April 7th through the 9th, and the theme was Be Extraordinary, which I believe Valley View is already leading the way in that case. But most of the sessions that I chose was social emotional and starting early, as we saw about the outcome prevention, and some, that's my special since I work with early Head Starters. 6 weeks to 2.5, I get to go into their house with educational activities, and plus we help them with the social emotional. So most of my steering was thinking about those things. And one of the things that we're always talking about the children, but it was the well-being of the educators. And I thought that that was really, we had some interactive time during that time that we really need to look at the well-being of our educators so they can enhance the social emotional of our little ones. And also the student voices. This is really where it just really got me, where I am so excited. There was a number of school board members who were 18 years old. And I was so excited, they didn't get my calls, the two principals. I called back to see what are we doing about voters drive, you know, not only just walking out, you know, to say that we've got something to say, but I like to put it this way, put some feet to your prayers. So if you're going to just walk out and say you have something to say, then put it with a voter's card and go out and vote and do something about putting me out of office or whoever else that you feel that you can do a better job. So for all those 18-year-olds who have not registered to vote, I'm talking to you, I'm looking for you, because we have an election coming up for school board members in April of 2019, so I'm looking for you. The word is out. That's for everybody that's listening and everybody that is here. We had other great speakers at the National Black Caucus. We had Mr. Ernest Green, which was the member of the Little Rock Nine. He spoke to us at the National Black Council luncheon. And then Mr. Cisnero spoke to us at the National Council of Hispanic Council. And again, it was always talking about the partnership and how these districts have used the student voice. It was all about the student and their voices and the social emotional from the youngest up into the administrators, and how some districts even improve their achievement gap by using the student voices. So I came back fired up like I'm always are after a conference is about, and one thing that I brought in, we kind of like table it over the last couple of years, is about community service, how many other districts are requiring community service for graduation. And I think that we really need to, the least, or the person who thinks they're the least, which in my vernacular is the least is the greatest, but that they can give back. And also, they ran out of bags because the first day we got to the conference that they were stuffing bags like we do for Feed My Starving Children. They were doing it for the local families there in San Antonio. So my, I guess, summing up is that the student voices, we need to hear like we heard from our young people, and not just to have them just to say what we want to hear them to say, and the social emotional, that how important that social emotional is before any learning can take place for anybody. So again, I'm fired up because I'm ready for those 18-year-olds and up. So we're going to see how many of you are going to register and get together where we're going to run a slate if you're really interested about running for the school board next year.
Thank you. Audience participation. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? If so, please state your name, and remember that due to time restraints, you have 5 minutes. Action report, Dr. Mitchum.
Yes, I'd like to ask that the board approve student due process case A as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes. Action report, Ms. Kinder.
Yes, sir. Action Report 11.1, we are seeking approval. This is second reading and approval for 3 board policies in accordance with the normal legal review process and updating in accordance with school code and legal parameters. 230 school district elections, 270 vacancies on school board, filing vacancies, and 280 board member oath and conduct. Very timely considering Member Campbell's comments.
So moved.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes. Action report, Mr. Grzaffi.
We've got 4 action reports for your consideration this evening, beginning with the Brooks Middle School grandstand replacement. The plan is to demolish the existing grandstand and remove the foundation piers and replace with a new aluminum bleacher with a seating capacity of 374 patrons, which is sized to meet the needs of the middle school athletic activities. The new bleachers will meet all applicable building codes and include handicapped accessible seating. 5 bids were received and opened on April 4th. Our intent is to begin construction on June 8th and complete the project by the end of August. Funding for this project has been included in our 2017-2018 operations and maintenance budget. At this time, we are making the recommendation to approve the contract for B&R bleachers for the new bleachers and press box at Brooks Middle School, which includes the base bid and alternate bid for a sum of $98,561.
So move.
Any discussion or questions?
Just one, we are for sure putting the press box back?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Gilbo?
No.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes.
Second action report, 12.2, is for the Romeoville High School office renovation. On March 9th, publicly advertised bids were opened and read aloud for the construction work for Romeoville High School office. After due deliberation, it was determined that Tower Contracting's bid was not in compliance with the bid requirements due to issues including failure to complete the required financial information requests, not identifying pending litigation, and other material information discovered during our due diligence. The lowest responsible bid in this case would be Bergen Construction Corporation in a combined amount of $2,576,500, which includes the base bid and alternate 2. Bergen Construction has met with our architect, and their bid is deemed compliant with the scope of work identified. Our goal is to begin construction in early June with substantial completion scheduled for mid-October. At this time, we're recommending approving a motion disqualifying Tower Contracting as the lowest bidder and approving a motion finding that Bergen is the lowest responsible bidder and directing staff to take appropriate steps to approve a construction contract with Bergen for $2,576,500, which includes the base bid and alternate number 2. We're also asking approval of a furniture contract with Kentwood Furniture in the amount of $58,957.56. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
No.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes.
Third action report this evening. On March 14th, bids for demolition and construction were publicly opened and read aloud for the Student Collaborative Center labs at both Bolingbrook and Romeoville High School. 5 bids were received for each of the projects. The bids were higher than anticipated. In order to recognize cost savings, we have decided to reject all bids and utilize individual trade contractors in conjunction with our facility operations internal management resources to complete the demolition and construction of both projects. Our goal in this project is to begin construction at the beginning of June with completion before the fall semester. As usual, funding for the project has been included in the operations and maintenance budget for FY18. The recommendation is to reject all construction bids for the Bolingbrook High School and Romeoville High School collab labs, but in the interim, approve both furniture contracts with Lowry McDonald for Bolingbrook High in the amount of $182,225.74 and Romeoville High School for $194,791.25. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
I have a question, and Rachel, you could probably answer this. Will the teachers be able to bring their students down to that area to work collaboratively?
Yes, I assume that there'd be times for open, visit where students could go on their own time, but then also for classrooms to use that space, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
No.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes.
Final action report this evening is a computing device refresh for fiscal year 18. At this time, we are recommending approval to purchase 953 staff laptops manufactured by Dell and associated peripheral devices, along with 20 Chromebook carts and deployment costs for a total cost of $719,744, funding to be covered by the Technology Department lease funds as well as Title I funds.
So moved.
Any discussion or questions?
Question. What are we doing with the old laptops?
Typically, we have recycled those in an environmentally friendly manner. Anytime we get a request from any sort of community groups, non-for-profits that might make use of a handful of computers, we're happy to redeploy those once they're wiped clean. They are as is, no warranty, obviously, and they have a lot of miles on them. I mean, these computers are 5 years old, but they might have some useful life left, and so we're happy to see those again redeployed within the community, and whatever's left, we would dispose of properly.
A lot of them go to the graveyard.
Go where?
A lot of them go to the computer graveyard,
Yes.
basically? Okay.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes. Action report, Ms. Hawks.
Thank you. This evening, Action Report 13.1, we're seeking the board's approval for the Consolidated Action Report. Certified personnel, we're seeking approval on 103 items. For classified personnel, 106 items. Classified administrative personnel for 4 items, and certified administrative personnel for 2 items.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Gilbo?
No.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes.
Before I move on to my next action report, I would just like to announce that the board has approved the reassignment of Mrs. Padilla. She will be going to Jamie McGee next year, so welcome to that, and we know that you'll be a great support to Principal Valenza. Thank you. Okay, my second action report this evening is 13.2. We're recommending the board's approval of the proposed job description, Operations Support Manager. This was brought for your review at the March 26th board meeting.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
No.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes.
And my final action report this evening is 13.3, resolution number 1809. We're asking the board to consider and approve the adoption of resolution authorizing dismissal of educational support personnel employee for reasons other than reduction in force.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Zach?
Yes. Superintendent's information reports. Mr. Gazafi.
A couple brief information reports to start. Just making you aware that the exterior brick masonry and steel lintels above the windows and doors at Jamie McGee Elementary are showing significant signs of deterioration or in need of repair and replacement. We've been monitoring these for some time now, along with having an independent structural analysis utilizing a structural engineer. And so we are in the process of preparing bid docs for removal and replacement of the lintels and the tuck pointing of exterior and interior masonry that has been damaged. We'll be prioritizing the more significant damage on the west side of the building, and after the bids are received, we'll determine if the budget and scope can accommodate this summer all of the work or have to spread it out over 2 summers. And so we plan on bringing that back to you at our next board meeting. Also making you aware, we will be like to bring back a 2-year renewal contract extension with Waste Management for our trash removal and compactor rental. They've provided us years of very good service, and they're asking for a 2.5% increase for each of the next 2 upcoming fiscal years. And so we also plan on bringing that back to you at our next board meeting. Next item is capital improvements, bond financing options. In the packet, we've proposed a 6-year capital improvements project list. And that list has been prioritized into 2 main categories, primarily project priority A, those projects that are deemed to be completed and necessary to ensure the safety and welfare of students. And priority B are projects that can be deferred beyond a 3-year window. The total budget estimate for the priority A projects is just under $28 million. This information has been discussed over the last 4 months within the Finance Committee. There are 4 types of bonds typically used to fund options for projects like these: working cash, life safety, funding bonds, or tort bonds. And as we have in the past, we would recommend the issuing of working cash bonds, which are the most often used for undertaking these capital projects. These bonds would be payable from the district's debt service extension base, which for 2018 was just over $4.1 million. The primary scenario presented involves the issuance not to exceed $26 million amortized over 20 years. The impact to a 2019 property tax bill is estimated to be $81 on a median home value of $200,000. If the board approves moving ahead, the next steps would require approval of a notice of intent resolution at our May 14th meeting, as well as an order calling for a bond issue notification hearing to be held at the June 11th meeting. In the packet, I've also attached a preliminary schedule of events for your information. Any questions on that? Second to last, county school facility tax overview. This is a kind of a new concept, something that would affect the entire county, and allows county voters to approve a sales tax to fund school facility costs. This 1% tax would be added to just about anything in the county sales tax base that is currently taxed. Use of this tax would include school additions and renovations, security upgrades, technology infrastructure, and parking lots and roof repairs or replacements. The tax cannot be used for direct instructional cost, buses, classroom furniture, operating costs, or salaries or benefits. The district may also choose to abate or decrease existing property taxes by paying all or part of existing building bonds. The tax, if passed, would be implemented countywide and distributed equally for every pupil who lives in the county and attends public schools. The net result for Valley View, based on the historical countywide sales tax revenue, is estimated at $7.78 million. This issue has also been discussed at several of the Finance Committee meetings over the last 2 months and was approved to come forward to the entire board. The first step would be passage of a resolution by school boards representing more than 50% of the student enrollment within the county. There's just under 130,000 students in the county, and they would need district support of at least 66,228 students, or 51%. If enough school districts pass a resolution, the question to implement the tax would then be placed on the ballot of the next regularly scheduled election, which should be this November. The results of the election require a simple majority to pass, at which time the tax would be imposed. If the board were in agreement to pursue this option, we would bring a resolution for consideration as a subsequent board meeting. Approval of said resolution would not guarantee anything, but would be critical in having the question appear on the ballot throughout the county in November. So right this time, I think I'm just looking for some feedback from the board in terms of if this is something that we would be interested in pursuing.
I have some concerns about this. We're already one of the highest sales tax in the area. So this would take us up another percent, so we'd be 9.5. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if I go and buy something at the store other than groceries, I'm going to pay 9.5% tax. Yeah, that doesn't make me happy. Okay, thank you.
I thought I read in there somewhere that, is there going to be a reduction in the property taxes, or is it in addition to the property taxes?
This would be in addition to a sales tax. And so as Deb just pointed out, if you're currently paying 8.5% for a bucket of goods, a basket of goods at Home Depot, let's say, you would be paying 9.5% if this were to pass. What that would do, it would generate, first it's got to pass the county, or it's 51% of the school districts would have to pass this resolution to put it on the ballot. Then it would become a simple majority in the November election. If enough voters in the county passed it, it would come to bear, it would apply, and would generate $7.78 million for Valley View. In answer to your question, the board would have the ability to use those funds for the intended purposes of facility improvements, things of that nature. It could not be used for direct operational costs, or it could be used to abate a portion of the debt service, outstanding debt service that the district is carrying. So it could be used as a credit, if you will, against property taxes annually.
But the property taxes, nothing's going to happen to those. Those are going to remain the same.
Correct.
And this is just going to be an additional tax for the people. And then it will, sales tax, it will be additional, but it will be a sales tax, I understand that. But, so taxing the people will be the same,
From a property
tax-wise, but then this will be an additional tax on goods that people buy. Yeah. I'm correct on that, right?
Yes.
Okay, I do know that a lot of people don't really want their taxes to go up, and the spending they don't like a whole lot of either, so that's what I'm trying to work on here.
Anybody else? I guess I'm really looking for some direction. This is a countywide issue that the school districts throughout the county have met, superintendents have met, business officials have met, to try to gauge if there's interest in putting this forward. If the board just says, no, we don't want this to move forward, I just want to report back to those districts that Valley View will not be supporting the resolution to put it on the ballot. It's that simple. And if they are, then that's fine as well. I can see pros and cons on this issue. I'm not going to lie. I think there's nobody wants more taxes. I certainly respect that and understand that. At the same time, I think communities have the ability to levy home rule taxes for those visitors that shop in our stores, use our restaurants when they're here for various activities. They have the ability to levy hotel tax, amusement tax, things of that nature. Unfortunately, we have none of those options available to us. Property taxes is it, and that's why ours are typically, it's the highest tax on the tax bill. So this is something that has not been tried in the collar counties. We would be the first collar county to try this. It's had some success downstate. I know in the Finance Committee today before the board meeting, Member Zach had reached out to a couple colleagues, and the feedback was that it didn't necessarily help some of the property values in that community. And so, again, I'm on the fence with this one as well. I certainly would love to be able to bring additional revenue into the district, but at what cost? And so.
So how many districts that you're talking about partnering with, that you're going to bring this information back to consider?
In the county, I think, let me give you that list, Liz. "38 districts in the county, representing, like I said, just under 130,000 students. Really what it's coming down to is the large districts that are needed to pass this. The Plainfields, which did pass this, the Joliet Elementary, the Joliet High School, us, 204 Naperville, think a small part of Oswego. I mean, Plainfield's got 26,000 students. Joliet 86 has 11,000. We have 16. Indian Prairie has 11 in the county. So, those districts invariably carry a lot of weight in this issue, regardless of what the smaller districts are deciding to do, so.
So is this going to come back at our next meeting as an action item? Or are you looking for our feelings tonight, or what?
If the board were unanimously or just, decided that they did not want this to proceed, getting that information to the remaining districts sooner rather than later would be beneficial to them. In terms of, I guess we can't take action on the item because it's not scheduled as such on the agenda.
Right.
But if you felt strongly one way or the other, I would ask that you just email me with your feelings.
Okay.
That might be enough for me to gauge. I can certainly share that with Dr. Mitchum and let the board know that everybody has kind of weighed in and here's where we stand. And again, I guess I'm just trying to let those districts know that Valley View will or will not support this going forward. Last item, 14.5, is that right? Middle school boundary change. So currently, R.C. Hill Elementary is the only elementary in the district that feeds into two separate middle schools, those being Evito Martinez and John J. Lukancic. This idea for a boundary change actually was proposed to senior admin by both principals of the affected schools. The change would allow students from R.C. Hill who currently attend Evito Martinez to instead attend JJL starting next school year. The impact would be would impact approximately 20 students who normally transition from R.C. Hill to AVM. There would be little to no cost since any busing could be accommodated within the existing routing and bus capacity. We would also put in some sort of grandfathering provision to allow current AVM students to continue at AVM until 8th grade graduation, along with any siblings that might be following within the family footsteps. We did conduct a survey to gather feedback from the affected families, along with their comments. We received 19 responses, and you can see that those results, when asked about leaving their peers when transitioning to middle school, were split 50-50. But as we looked into the information a little bit further in terms of are they less split when asked about the opportunity to attend here versus remaining at AVM, the results were 47.4% no, 36.8% yes, with 15% undecided. The reasons given were what you'd expect. The reasons to not change were closer to home as we are, the convenience of being able to walk to Martinez, as well as to attend with siblings. For those that responded yes, they do want to go to JJL, and several of them responded that as long as busing is provided, they're happy to attend JJL. And so right now, the two subdivisions that are impacted by this are Heritage Place and Malibu Bay. These subdivisions would be just south of Martinez and just a little bit west across 135th. So they are certainly closer to Evito Martinez. I can't speak, I mean, obviously I think they were placed at Evito Martinez just because of their proximity. But again, they are the only students who transition from split when they're transitioning out of elementary into middle, with those 20 kids going to Martinez and the balance from Hill going here.
If there's only 20 students, that really doesn't take away any classes at AVM, and it really doesn't add any classes. It just might add class size, but not the actual class, because there'll be 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, right? And only 20 students?
Correct.
So I guess my question is, why are we doing this if it's not going to impact relieving classes?
Initially, especially if grandfathering were in effect, that number would be low, but that number would compound, and then we wouldn't know for sure what the trend would be to follow. But if there's 20 incoming 6th grade students, there could be younger siblings that would come after them while students transitioned up to 7th to 8th. So that 20 could increase over year 2, year 3, and then we don't know what the trend would be to follow. But initially, you're right, it would be very low, especially if all of the students didn't. But we did look at how many of those students have siblings and what we would anticipate coming up through our elementary ranks to see if that number would eventually lighten some of the high class sizes at AVM. And there's also a space issue at AVM where Lukanzik does have the space in the building here. And so initially, I think it would be small, but it could have the potential to grow. And the issue really primarily wasn't overcrowding per se. It was about keeping the students together in the transition and finding out if that was something that was important to them, because we have gotten requests over the years for students to remain with their peers that they've been with through all the way from kindergarten on up. So it was really generated by requests and then also the principals looking at their enrollment and their class sizes.
A couple questions. Request by whom? Parents or?
By parents. So over the years, we get requests every year, with parents requesting different schools for various reasons. Sometimes it's childcare, sometimes it's proximity or transportation. And in this instance, it's been students, parents, and I'm not talking about high numbers of requests, but have had some over the years where parents have wanted their kids to remain and go with their peers. And we get that often, from one school to another, and we look at each consideration individually.
The 20 students, are they all sixth graders?
These are all incoming sixth graders.
Sixth graders.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes more sense than 6th, 7th, and 8th split.
No, they're all incoming sixth graders, and so what I said is that number could grow if there's younger siblings behind them. So if 15 of the 20 went, and then, the following year, there's 10 more siblings coming up with them, and then that could continue to increase, depending upon how the families, the younger children that they have, or if any younger families then continue to move into those neighborhoods.
It looked like in the survey, I'm not sure if I'm right on that, but when I read the responses for the survey, that was a concern of some of the parents, that if their siblings had gone to AVM, they still wanted their younger siblings to go to AVM.
Yeah.
And would that be an option?
Yeah, that's
still
something
for
that
them?
we wanted to discuss, because we thought it would be in everyone's best interest to allow those families, Principal DiDonato calls them AVM legacy families, that, their family has gone to AVM, their older siblings have, and they would want their younger children to continue through. They're comfortable with the school, they know the teachers, they love AVM, and so that would be a provision that we would want to consider to be least intrusive for our families, and then if new families move in after them, then they would fall into the JJL boundary. It's just a point of discussion based on the feedback. We think that would probably be the best way to go about it, and that's what Gary was referring to with the grandfathering clause, so to speak.
Okay.
Ms. Kind?
Before we move on, I guess, if there was interest in pursuing this option, we would need to formally do some sort of boundary change that would need to be approved by the board. No?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, I guess similar to the county facility tax, if you could just let me know how you feel about this so that I can determine if it does require further action or if you feel like this is something that does not want to be considered at this time. I'd appreciate it.
I know it's been a goal of our district over the past several years to keep our students aligned from, the middle, elementary all goes to the same, middle goes to the same, high school, obviously. And I think it's important I think this is a really good idea.
And we do have a lot of students or families that their transition isn't as smooth, perhaps due to bilingual programming, challenge programming, or other special education programming. But we do try our best to keep our families together and keep that as supportive transition as possible, while at the same time meeting our student needs. And so this one isn't one of those unique cases, so it's a little bit in its own field of consideration.
Okay, Ms. Kinder, 14.6.
Okay, information report 14.6, I'd like to invite Tracy Miller, Interim Executive Director for Educational Services for 612, up to the podium. Tracy's going to give us an overview tonight, along with some of our educator representatives that are here with us this evening, regarding some planning that is taking place for middle school block scheduling for the 2018-2019 school year. So she's going to provide you with some background and rationale to let you know what is going on with this planning and how we arrived at this conclusion and where we're headed next. So Tracy, I'll turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm going to have the educators, you can stand if you want, or if you want to sit. We do have a little bit of a presentation here. So what prompted our block discussion? We started with some educator feedback. So during the last several years, our building and district leaders have received educator voice asking for a number of educational supports to be embedded into the current school day. These supports include addition of minutes for mathematical instruction, increased time for collaboration, opportunity for advisory period, access to careers for all students, time to better enrich and intervene with students, and consolidated minutes in instructional areas for extended learning opportunities, for example, our STEM classes.
And so I just wanted to add that when Tracy discusses and uses the word block, what she's referring to is the consolidation of instructional minutes into a bigger chunk of time. So if you're not familiar with that, I know there's many ways to interpret that, or you've had different experiences with that term. What we're talking about is creating longer periods of instructional time throughout the school day.
Thank you. So in December of 2017, we wanted to assess whether the concerns that we were hearing from our educators represented the beliefs of some, or most, or all, or just a few of our educators. And so we sent a survey that was for all of our middle school educators to complete, and that happened again in December of 2017. The survey was completed by 215 staff members, representing a response rate of 78% of our 277 middle school teachers and 66% of all middle school certified staff members, for which we employ 327 individuals. The December survey asked educators to rate the degree to which they agreed or disagreed with the following statements. As you can see, more than 70% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed with statements related to increased weekly planning time, allowing students to participate in band during the school day, and keeping our English language arts instructional minutes consistent. More than 70% of respondents also agreed to the idea of providing careers classes for all students, creating an opportunity for intervention and/or enrichment, and the opportunity for students to have advisory time during the school day. On January 30th, 2018, an educator subcommittee was assembled to further discuss the results of December's educator survey. This subcommittee included educators from all 5 middle schools, as well as representation from various academic and student services departments. Members from each middle school were selected by content directors, as well as the union leadership. Finally, both the union and the district invited members of their respective leadership teams to participate in the meeting. The subcommittee began with the whole group identifying the collective hopes and dreams for our middle school students. This is the list that was brainstormed by that group. Consistent with the general feedback and results from the December educator survey, advisory, intervention, and enrichment, as well as access to electives and professional learning communities, or PLC planning time, continued to be major themes of our brainstorming. At this time, a draft version of a middle school block schedule, similar to what Assistant Superintendent Kinder indicated, was presented to the educators. The committee was asked to provide feedback as to the structure of the proposed plan, and feedback from the educators included a general interest and excitement about this potential change, coupled with some questions about how this structure and the methods by which educators would support the needs of all students would occur. Here's an example of a student schedule within the structure of block. So if you're familiar with our middle school schedule, currently we have 10 periods, and then it kind of gets a little messy at lunchtime, but students see about 7 courses during the course of a school day. In our block structure, students would have an A day and a B day on a consistent rotation. English, language arts, and math would occur or will occur on both A day and B day, and then the remaining periods, science, social studies, PE, and careers will occur every other day. Added to the schedule, you'll notice a period called WIN, which means what I need. This would allow students time to receive advisory, academic, or social emotional intervention and/or enrichment during the school day. Utilizing the positive educator response garnered in the January 30th meeting, another subcommittee meeting was held on February 22nd. 19 educators were invited to this meeting, with 13 able to attend. The vast majority carried over from January, where the district and union leadership jointly invited educator members. Educators were informed that a voluntary staff meeting was set for Monday, February 26th, and that the focus of this voluntary meeting would be to inform staff of the planned move to block schedule for the 2018-2019 school year. Feedback about this voluntary meeting, as well as the block scheduling, was also solicited. And finally, members of the subcommittee were offered the opportunity to participate in either an advisory or academic subcommittee that would define further the components of WIN, that what I need period. As mentioned on the previous slide, all 5 middle schools offered a voluntary after-school meeting for staff on February 26th. During this meeting, the December educator survey data was presented, as was a copy of the draft block schedule, which included the basic structure of what I need, or WIN period. Benefits of the block schedule, all which address the needs identified by educators in the December survey, as well as committee and district next steps, were also presented. Finally, educators were encouraged to use a Google form to submit any questions he or she might have about block scheduling. Just under a month later, the advisory and academic committees reconvened. The group began by agreeing to the idea that WIN, or what I need, will include 20 minutes of advisory, 20 minutes of power reading and conferencing, as well as 40 minutes of enrichment and intervention. WIN will occur for 1 semester, with careers for the other semester. Band students will continue to receive band all year long. The subcommittee was also reminded that the building administration were currently in the process of creating a master schedule for the 2018-2019 school year, so the number of WIN periods or questions about who would specifically teach WIN would be answered as master schedules were further finalized. Moreover, a frequently asked questions link was shared with all educators, which contained answers to many of the questions that the educators had asked during February's voluntary meeting. After the structure was determined, the group divided into 2. The first group worked to further define the advisory portion of WIN. This team reviewed the needs of middle school students as well as social-emotional resources. Using this information, the team agreed to investigate Responsive Classroom, a research-based text or set of practices, which recently published a middle school advisory text. This resource aligns with Valley View's strategic plan and connects to work already in progress at our elementary schools. As a result of this meeting, the Responsive Classroom text was ordered and will be provided to the committee for further review. The focus of advisory is to build a positive school community, which, or much like Romeoville High School and Bolingbrook High School have done with This Is Our House and Honor the Raiders. Responsive Classroom focuses on helping students build a sense of belonging, significance, and fun, while also improving academic skills, supporting students in communicating effectively, and building individual social-emotional learning skills. When the academic subcommittee met, this group further defined the goal setting and WIN components for the period. It was determined that for 20 minutes, students will engage in power reading and individual conferencing with the teacher. Power reading will be decreased during language arts classes in order to accommodate for this inclusion during WIN. The focus of conferencing is to enable students to reflect on his or her academic or social-emotional interests and needs, to create connections with the student's conferencing educator, and finally, to determine his or her next steps for pursuing personal goals related to enrichment, interest, intervention, depending on how they feel that they need this support. For the 40 minutes of enrichment and intervention, which is this part of the class, students will act upon the plans made during conferencing and engage in academic enrichment, social-emotional plans that they create. Each middle school will further define this component, utilizing the needs and resources present in the building, but a consistent focus is placed on providing the resources that each child needs to achieve the goals he or she sets during the conferencing component of WIN. That brings us to March 29th. In an effort to provide continued collaboration and communication with our staff, all 5 middle schools explored block scheduling as it relates to instruction during our March early release. A subcommittee update similar to what was just shared in this presentation was provided to all staff, as was an activity related to creating engaging instruction during the block period. Finally, educator voice was solicited surrounding the block schedule. When asked to cite his or her immediate concerns for transitioning to block scheduling, just under 30% of middle school staff indicated that support for incorporating brain breaks into instructional time would be most helpful. About 20% of educators indicated that the incorporation of movement, the structure of the class, and student engagement is also needed. These requests will be met in upcoming professional development sessions during the 17-18 and 18-19 school years. When educators were asked about questions that they still had about the WIN period, 39% of educators shared that the structure of the period needs further explanation, while 34% shared that they do not have any questions or concerns at this time. The remaining 27% of respondents varied in their questions from how power reading might shift during language arts, what the specific impact would be on a teacher's daily schedule, how students would receive special education supports, or how intervention and enrichment will be delivered to students. So given this lengthy journey, where are we now? First, the advisory subcommittee needs to review the responsive classroom resources and reconvene to discuss, plan, and identify implementation of the resource during the advisory portion of the WIN period. Second, in the next few weeks, each middle school will be taking ownership in the enrichment and intervention sections of the WIN period. Collaboration with educators in the building will be essential as the resources, activities, enrichment opportunities, and interventions are specifically mapped out. Further, our content departments will continue to review our assessments and curricular resources to determine how we can use these supports to meet our students' needs within the curriculum. Third, the creation and sharing of each building's 2018-2019 master schedule with staff is necessary so that each educator will know which course he or she will be teaching next year and can participate in any training opportunities related to various components of the WIN course where appropriate. As a final update, I do want to share with you that our parents and students have been recently made aware of the shift to block scheduling for the 18-19 school year. Yesterday, a parent link was sent to incoming 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, and today, students in 6th and 7th grade were informed of this change during their 10th period course. In addition, a parent letter was backpacked home this evening for parent review, and tomorrow the district plans to add information about block scheduling to our webpage so the larger community is also informed of this change. Lastly, the block FAQ will continue to be updated for educators to reference as we persist in solidifying decisions such as the building specifics for WIN and the actual staff assigned to supporting this course. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I know that was a lengthy presentation. I do have a series of wonderful, lucky educators here to talk to you about their perceived supports for WIN and block scheduling, and I'd like to give them the opportunity to speak to that.
I'm going first because I've taught in this district for 27 years. And at the end of every year, if someone asked me, what would you like? I would say to them, I want more minutes in math class. And of course, it's off. The course the year I'm retiring is now we get more minutes in math class. So what I want to say about block scheduling, it means more instructional minutes every day for every student. This district gives a lot of resources for at-risk students. We don't give that many resources for honors students or students at a higher level. This gives all students the same amount of time, and it's extra time in math class. And that allows for students of all levels to engage in rich mathematical tasks, to build conceptual as well as procedural understanding, allowing for a more inquiry-based type of mathematics instruction, which gives us ample time to get the task done, have the students talk about the task, collaborate, critique each other's reasoning. All those mathematical practices can be done so much better with 80 minutes of math every day than 40 minutes of math every day. So I say kudos to the district for finally doing this. I'm thrilled. I'm just upset that I'm not going to be a part of it. But that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
And I'm going to piggyback off of Carrie. I'm also a math teacher. I'm very excited about getting more minutes in math for those same reasons. I currently teach 7th grade block, 7th grade regular, and 7th grade honors. One of the things that I incorporated this year is a problem of the day where the students come in and it's just a way to get them thinking about numbers differently, how many ways they could come up with the number 10, how many different ratios are equivalent to a given ratio I give them. That's something I could only do with my block students right now because I have the time for that. And so it excites me to be able to do things like that where we could build on number sense every day with all my students, and going off of what Carrie said, with the honor students as well. I think it just gives us an opportunity to be more intentional with our students, scaling down on the number of students we have to keep track of as educators, and being able to pull them from WIN or push into the WIN class to support the students who need us. And I also think it's very important that the students do have careers, and even though I'm coming from the math standpoint, I fully support our students being able to push into the careers classes as well, and not just currently how we have our block students do not get that opportunity. So those are just some of the key points I wanted to touch on.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Bowman, and I'm lucky enough to teach a 7th grade language arts and social studies block. So I have these students for 3 periods at Vito Martinez for the past 2 years. I'm a huge proponent of SEL and social emotional learning. I believe that relationships are the absolute first and foremost thing in a classroom. It is that relationship that is nurtured between a student and a teacher that enables them to make academic gains. One example of this is I had a student that came in this year, and he kind of knew from the beginning he was going to be a little bit of trouble. You know, I gave you that look. And we started off a little bit on a rough foot, but after being able to invest the time in him and sit down and have conversations, I came to find that he kind of came in every year thinking, this teacher's going to think I'm the trouble kid, I'm the problem, they're just going to kick me out, send me to the dean's office. I did not establish that relationship with him. From then on, he came in every day, he was ready to work. He wanted to work for me, he wanted to work for himself. I've seen absolute huge academic gains being able to have this relationship and the extra time with him every day. He grew from a beginning to proficient level understanding in our common assessments. He's grown 175 Lexile points. He is just shy of college and career readiness, but I still have a few weeks, so that's still my goal to get him there. But it's because of this additional time we've allowed us to be able to really invest in not only our students' academic growth, but also their social emotional learning. And because it is those relationships first and foremost, I believe that that's when the academic gains truly happen. So allowing teachers to have this extra time will have them invest in that as well.
Good evening. I'm also a language arts teacher, and I want to kind of wrap up some of the things that they were talking about. As an educator, as educators, we want what is most effective for our students. And as a language arts teacher, I actually, with the block schedule, lose a tiny amount of minutes with my students every day. I currently teach in a block. I get to see my students every day for a block. But I'm in favor of this because I know the benefit to our students is going to outweigh any little loss that I have in minutes in language arts. Our students are going to get the same opportunity to access core content and careers classes, which they currently do not have equal access to those opportunities. They get extended class time in every class, not just in language arts and in block math, to deepen their learning. They'll get the benefit of the increased collaboration time that teachers will gain with the block schedule, which means that we can more effectively meet their needs. We also get increased time as teachers during the school day outside of student lunch periods to reach students and give some of the support and extension that our students need, in addition to the social and emotional support. We currently have a large number of students who give up lunch periods and stay after school to get the supports they need, and we will be able to provide those things during the school day for our students. I am also, in addition to being an educator who is in favor of block scheduling, I, many years ago, was a student who transitioned to block scheduling as a senior in high school. Very similar for 4 classes a day, A day and B day. And as a student, I still remember the impact that switching to that block schedule had on me, even in terms of things like additional time to do homework that I didn't have to balance all 6 courses or in a single night. So I strongly believe that the block schedule is going to be more effective for our students across the board.
Thank you all for sharing your perspective, and to all the many, many educators who have given their input in various shapes and forms to help us arrive at something that we truly feel will benefit our students and will benefit our educators as well. Thank you, Tracy, and to the board or to the community. We're happy to answer any questions and continue the dialogue as we go through finalizing these changes and really having more of a solid picture of what this will look like before the school year ends, and then we start on a strong foot in the fall. And so we know this is a continued process as we work together and ensure that we figure out the challenges to really realize the best that we can with this change.
I'd also like to thank the 4 educators who took the time out of their day tonight to address the board and the community. It's greatly appreciated. I'd like to say also, with significant change always comes a level of trepidation. The change in middle school scheduling is not immune to this fact. We understand and are sensitive to the unknowns associated with the change process. That's why we take great care in collecting qualitative teacher voice before proceeding. We are confident that our data collection process indicates that the majority of the middle school teachers are in support of the impending changes. It is human nature for those who are in disagreement to voice their concerns. We understand that. This administration is sensitive to this voice and will continue to work collaboratively with all stakeholders in our attempt to facilitate change designed to serve the social, emotional, and academic interests of our students. So thank you all for the work you've put into this adjustment that is designed to support our kids and our teachers. Also, before we move on to the response to the concerns raised in public session on 3/26/18, I'd also like to add a comment. I'd like to publicly acknowledge the tremendous amount of pressure that comes with leadership. It's significant. In particular, the position of President of the Union for the Valley View School District. Ms. Sharko is charged with implementing the district vision and mission as a successful middle school social studies teacher. She also has a significant responsibility of serving the interests of teachers at a time where nationwide teachers are feeling unappreciated, underpaid, and understaffed, and generally not supported. Ms. Sharko also has a daunting task of balancing the needs of the membership with supporting a collaborative relationship with administration, while again supporting her students as a teacher. Many times those responsibilities conflict. Many times those responsibilities cause conflict. I do not envy the significant stress this can and does have on any one person willing to take on such a role, especially when we are also in contract negotiations. Although Ms. Sharko and I do not agree on some topics relevant to our district, I go on record as saying I admire the tenacity in which Ms. Sharko deals with very complicated issues. I also want the membership to know that Ms. Sharko is working fervently to ensure you ratify a fair contract, taking into consideration your voice. It is difficult to lead, especially during trying times. I publicly want to thank the union leadership for working with this administration while also not compromising the interests of their membership. And so with that, Ms. Kendall, you can proceed with the next information.
I have a question before we move on. That's what I was trying to ask. I have a question about the last.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The one question I had, it says the educators. You said 13 out of the 19 educators. Who were those educators that you were mentioning in your slide?
The educators, the subcommittee?
Yeah, in one of the meetings that you were having, it says that 19 was invited and only 13 was able to come. Who were those that were invited? Who were the 19? Who were they?
Well, we had representatives from every building, every content area of the core classrooms, careers, as well as student services and representatives from district office and Student Services Department, and members from our Strategy for Action Planning team for the district. We can provide you with a list of names and titles if you are interested in that.
Yes, I am.
Okay, and as Ms. Miller did say, that Claudine and Rachel Delamorte, our president and vice president, did provide their representatives to be represented on that committee as well. And then our content directors selected individuals as well. And then we had a couple requests to add people, and so we had them join the party as well.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions as well. Let's see where I'll start. I have some concerns because I know in the past programs are implemented and then they're changed. And then they're implemented and then they're changed. And as a teacher, that's really hard when that keeps happening over and over. And I think that's what they were trying to stress last board meeting with the new implementation of the reading specialists, and not even a year and they already changed it. And I know that that has happened with other programs in the past. So if we do decide to do something like this, I would hope that it's gonna last long enough where people can feel comfortable with what they're doing, and then also be giving that grace period, you know, to eventually feel comfortable in what they're doing when they're working with the kids. The other thing that I have concern with is we heard from the math teachers and the English teachers, and last week we heard from career teacher and elementary teacher, and I know the ones that have the shortened periods are the ones that are probably affected more negatively, and we haven't heard from any STEM teachers, science teachers, social studies teachers. I know with the curriculum that has been changed through the state or the federal with the Common Core, the social studies or the social sciences get cut. I've heard from social studies teachers that say the first 6 weeks they don't even get to teach social studies, they have to teach language arts at the high school level. So I'm very concerned that we may be losing that type of education in our school district, especially the history portion and the social studies portion, along with any STEM that might be cut along with the careers as well. So I would like to maybe have some social studies and some science teachers come up, and maybe even a couple more careers teachers, and tell us how they feel. Another thing is with the WIN, I have a question here. It says that those are the needs of certain students, and then the other ones will have the opportunity to be in the careers. I want to know approximately how many of the students will be in the WIN, and will they opt out of the careers? Will they not be allowed to have the career classes if they are in the WIN program? And of course, I know you guys said that a lot of this is in the works still, and I know that's hard on teachers too, hearing that it's still in the works and they're unsure of what it's going to be like for them next year. But I would like to know what it's going to be like for them next year in the WIN. I could see a lot of positives with that, but I can also see, I know in advisories there's a lot of good things happening, but I also know that it's a lot like a homeroom as well, where there's a lot not being done. So I would hate to see that a program is cut because somebody's sitting in a homeroom situation and they're not getting that where they could, if at all possible. So maybe even an option where, you know, if they are in need, they can also transition when they're not in need to a program that would be beneficial for them that they would be otherwise missing out on. That would be something I would like to see, if at all possible. I did have another question on, the math and the language arts. I see that they will be having that every day, which the periods will be double, will be 82 minutes. So with a student, will they have, I mean, it would seem like they would have to have the same teacher every day, which that's a lot for one teacher to have that every day with all of those same kids. Would it be, I'm just trying to picture what this would be like. Would it be similar to an elementary where they're just with the same kids all the time? And I guess I just have some questions about how all of that will work. And then I guess with the contract negotiations too, do they get paid more than the other teachers because they work, like, I don't know, they'll have the same group of kids and then a social studies teacher has different, I don't know how it works. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, absolutely. So just to respond to some of the points that you raise, we really honestly, truly believe that ownership and development at the building with the building teams is really important to truly understand what this looks like for us in our building with the resources that we have, with the strengths that we bring. And so Tracy mentioned in the presentation that building teams are now taking forward that planning for that win and advisory period with the building input and with teachers, educators from the building making those plans specifically for what the building would look like. I don't feel like it would be appropriate for me or Tracy or anyone at the district office to make that plan up in terms of, you know, the specific detail. And I really think that I have great confidence in our building teams to tell us specifically how it's going to look like within our consistent structure. And we can definitely share updates as the building teams progress in their planning. But that's really going to be driven by the educators. And I think that's a really important point to make. To your point about the social studies and science, the voice that we've received from our social studies and science teachers, and Claudine Sharko is a social studies teacher, and she told me herself that the extra time to do the in-depth extended learning with, you know, their using of resources and DBQs and database answers and everything in their classroom and their curriculum is really important. And then our STEM teachers have also shared that with their new STEM curriculum, that this is a welcome change, because right now with 41 minutes by the time that they engage in the experiments, they have to, you know, pack up and reset for their next class coming in. So they're seeing their students for longer periods of time. They don't see them every single day, but they're seeing them for longer periods of time when they see them every other day. And so I have a social studies teacher right behind me.
When you mentioned social studies, I said, well, I teach social studies too, so I wanted to come down and note a little bit about the time and what that would do for a social studies classroom. ISBE just released their new standards for Illinois social standards, and the whole, similar to Common Core where you have your priority standards, there's a similar structure to the ISBE standards, and those are all shared inquiry and critical thinking standards. So a lot of what we base on in my instruction in social studies is based through shared inquiry discussions and collaboration with students. So we engage in discussions about thematic themes that are seen throughout history and how they relate to what is still relevant today. And that shared inquiry model has been incredibly successful in both my language arts and my social studies classroom, but it takes a lot of time to develop that culture in the classroom. It takes a lot of time to invest in the way that that procedure looks with students, and a 44-minute period doesn't allow for a lot of that, the enrichment that can come from that discussions. Oftentimes I have students, by the time that they move their seats, get situated, have a discussion leader start with their focus questions, whether we're talking about, recently we were talking about the Indian Removal Act of 1830 and how that kind of, we can relate that to today and the way that the Native American tribes are looked at and recognized. And we were connecting that in a shared inquiry discussion, but by the time the kids move, get situated, sit down, get their notes out, start talking, we're already well halfway through the period. So I think the 80 minutes for social studies classes will also allow for a lot of that learning collaboratively and that growth through the shared inquiry to help with that critical thinking skills.
While I have you there, will you, with the schedule, be able to accomplish as much in a year as you have in the past?
Yeah, that's not having the schedule this way with 80 minutes with social studies, it could be a problem in terms of content. If you look at the ISBE standards, they're more of a thematic idea. So we look at finance, we look at economics, we look at different geographical relationships between humans. And so I think that we have more of an opportunity to dig a mile deep with a lot of these themes as opposed to kind of that inch wide kind of going this way. So we might not be able to cover as much historical context in terms of social studies curriculum and content, but I think with the additional time we'd be able to dig more into those themes that we see that run across throughout history. One of the big things that we discuss is how do we use history to relate that to today and how we can learn from things that have happened to us in the past. So I think those themes can be addressed a little bit more.
Can you address a little further the difference between the thematic approach in social studies and the traditional approach that required much more rote memory of memorization of dates, times, statements in history, and how the Common Core has required a shift in that, and the difference between the two, because I'm not sure that everyone understands the difference between thematic approach versus the traditional approach.
Sure. So when we were looking at different aspects of revolution, so I teach 7th grade social studies, and we looked at ideas of revolution, we looked at ideas that promoted us to the Constitution. So we looked at the idea as a whole. So what were reasons that people would want to revolt? Not just the dates and the facts that led to our revolution, not just the battles and the things that had happened to lead to our eventual creation as a union, but we looked at reasons why people would stand up and say, this is not okay for me, this is not making me, happy in this society, I want to stand up and be for my own. So these are, throughout a shared inquiry process, students kind of dig into not only those dates and facts, but they start to dig into why would we want to do this? Why would we want to revolt against a country that's given us everything that we want? So it wasn't the idea of just, these are the American Revolution, here's all the dates, here's all the battles, all the commanders. It's looking more towards that deeper understanding of what led these events to occur, and how that we can connect that to today's situations that are happening, current events.
Yeah, one of the drawbacks of the traditional way in which we educated kids was it didn't promote critical thinking. And now with Common Core, we are expecting kids to critically think about why they learn, what they learn, and how it's going to affect them in the future. And that's a significant change in how we used to educate kids versus how we educate kids now.
So some great input from our social studies teacher, and I know I hear similar type of comments from our STEM teachers as well, in terms of the ability to really go deep and to not feel so rushed in exploring and digging into those concepts with the practices that our students would use in science, technology, engineering, and math. But we're happy to continue that dialogue. I think the educators really say it better than I could by far. So I will encourage that voice to continue to be shared. And if you'd like to connect with educators from a particular area, you can certainly reach out to me and we'll connect you with individuals, or the principals can connect you with individuals, because we are having a lot of dialogue in a lot of different areas, not just about the curriculum and instructional considerations, but also about the logistical challenges, the difficulties that will, require some shifting. And those answers just aren't given to us. Those are things that we are discovering and building together, and that the teams are really discovering and building together. So will there be some shifts or maybe some adjustments with curriculum? Absolutely, but will it allow them to do more, to go more in depth with the time that they have? We strongly feel that it will. And so we can continue to share that voice with you as well. The question about math and language arts, and the idea that you have those groups of students every day, and that social studies and STEM and careers and PE alternate daily. On a daily basis, currently our teachers teach 6 classes. That's not going to change for next year. What will change is that the class periods will be basically backed up together, so that's 2 class periods pushed together, and you have the same roster of students for double periods of time. So no teacher is going to be teaching more than they are contractually obligated with the 6 equal periods. That will stay the same. What will be the unique factor is that you keep that same roster of students for 2 blocks of those times. So there is not an increased duty or an increased class assignment for any educator above and beyond their 6 contractual periods. They are just blocked together. And so, you know, if you are a social studies teacher, you will not see your students every single day, but you will see them on alternating days for the 82 minutes of time. Then you see your next group of students, and then you alternate back to your other group of students. With careers, your question about careers, the only way that students will not have option to alternate with careers is if they are band students and they have elected to be in band. So all students will have access to careers. The careers will alternate on a semester basis. So over their period of time in middle school, over 3 years, they will have exposure to all of the career areas of applied tech, music, and art. And band students will continue to have band. It'll be offered during the day, and we will be incorporating some of the really critical elements of advisory and support for band students as well, in partnership with our band instructors. So our careers teachers are having these conversations right now. Yes, they have concerns. Yes, they know this is going to make some shifts, but there also are positive adjustments that can be made with this, and they're having those conversations now. They actually just met today. Our careers teachers did as well. So those conversations are continuing as we work through this. And did I miss anything?
I think I have one more for you. You said that messages were sent home to parents that this is going to be implemented. How much input from parents? I know you had groups with a few parents, but how many parents were actually consulted on this?
So the biggest point of parent contact that we received, and this actually dates back a few years, is through our external system assessment when we had parent focus groups that we ran. And parents were generally pleased, except there were 2 areas that parents really wanted to see a change. And one was having access to careers, because for students who were receiving additional academic support, they did not have access to that. And the other was opportunity for enrichment and increased learning opportunity for students who were high achieving students that may not be getting that challenge that parents felt that they needed. And so those were the 2 loudest pieces of voice that came out of the parent focus groups that were held when we did visits at all of our buildings throughout the district. And so focus groups at all middle schools were held to collect that parent voice. So that is one important piece of consultation that we feel that is we're being responsive to in looking at how we support students. Other feedback that we've collected at our buildings from our parents has been in terms of the need for students to get academic support or for students to have the opportunity to access that during the school day. And that's been a consistent theme that we've heard from our parents at all of our buildings.
About how many parents were in those focus groups?
I'd have to look back. I think we probably had, I'm looking to phone a friend out here to see if a principal remembers. We had about, okay, so about 50 parents total in that particular instance that I just referenced were part of that focus group. And that when we did the external system assessment. But then there's obviously been other feedback over the years from our parents, and that the principals get on an annual basis from their parents and from their parent groups and organizations.
Oh, I don't know if you answered what percent will be in the WIN?
So students will have the WIN or advisory period for a semester at a time, and that alternates. So that's one of the downfalls of this. They won't have that consistently throughout the year. But all students, with the exception of band students, will be in the WIN or advisory period for 1 semester during the school year. So I do not know off the top of my head what percentage of students are currently in band, but I would guesstimate that it is perhaps 15%. Principal Laverty, Principal DiDonato, Principal Rollerson, about 20% of our students are currently in band. So the remainder of the students would have access to the careers, and then the WIN and advisory period.
I was under the assumption that the WIN was for students that needed extra help, but that's for all students?
It is, and so the idea that it's just for intervention or struggling students is not an accurate perception. Just as much as students have needs to fill gaps that they may have in their learning, students have needs to be challenged on the other end of the spectrum as well. And so an example I can think of that I actually spoke with someone about today was a makerspace where students could engage in STEM, research, exploration. So those are ideas that our buildings are discussing right now. Like, what are our options for enrichment? How could we support those with staff? And how could students access those? An important thing that we've talked about in some of our subcommittee meetings was giving students choice, not just saying, hey, student, you're struggling in math, you need to go for math help, but also giving students the opportunity to engage in something that really excites them and interests them. And so taking on a STEM project and a research project, taking on something that has an interest in art, for example, to really extend, they will have the time to do that in an enrichment sense and in a choice sense. And so for some of our upper level learners or high achieving students, we want to give them the opportunity as well to access, you know, like they will be in their classrooms, but even to access other enrichment opportunities.
Thank you.
If I make one comment concerning parent input, I really believe that it's our responsibility to gain and sustain buy-in from our stakeholders, to include parents. And in the 38 years I've been doing this, there's two things that I've found that sustain that. One is the understanding that the students in our district are growing and achieving as measured by the school report card, benchmarked against other districts around the state. Whether we like it or not, that is how we are assessed, and that has a significant impact on the health and welfare of communities, because people literally buy and sell homes based on the perception of the worth of a school district. So one way in which to gain and sustain buy-in is to ensure that our kids are growing and learning. That's significant. And unfortunately for us, much of that is mandated by the state as it applies to how that's looked at, what we assess, and how that's measured. The second way, which I think is very critical, is what kids say to their parents when they go home. And I've said to teachers many times that parents' perception of the worth of this district hinges significantly on what their kids tell them when they go home, what the experience is they've had while in our care. And when kids go home and tell their parents they'd had a good experience, then for the most part, parents buy into what we're doing. When kids go home and say they have a negative experience, then parents traditionally don't buy into what we're doing. So we perceive that the greater time students have with teachers who care, which was demonstrated by the teachers who are here today, and I think they're just a microcosm of the culture that's built in this district, I foresee great movement for our middle schools, which will translate to great movement for our high schools as we transition into this new way in which we block our kids.
There are many, there's other benefits that were not voiced as well, and that would be that there would be less lost instructional time. For a lot of the other stuff that occurs that we have to take minutes from core instruction, that, you know, completing the 5 Essentials survey, completing the Illinois Youth Survey, which we're required to do, those things can happen during that time. And so that's a benefit for students, that's a benefit for educators, and so there's a lot of other benefits and considerations that have been taken into account as well in the conversation and looking at how this could positively impact students. Go ahead. Okay, so moving on to information report 14.7. This is a narrative response to concerns that were raised on the March 26, 2018 board meeting. Multiple concerns were voiced during the public comment section that evening during the board meeting. Primarily, these were regarding adjustments made with elementary support staff and with middle school block scheduling. We are providing a response to these concerns so that all stakeholders are aware of the facts associated with the perceptions that were shared in the public forum. Senior administration remains committed to using educator voice from other stakeholder groups when applicable, data and research to drive decision making. As always, we also remain committed to working through the change process in a transparent and collaborative fashion. Since the March 26th board meeting, we have met with Union President Claudine Charcot to follow up on concerns and hear additional input. We've met multiple times. As always, we are available to listen, dialogue, and partner with union leadership to fully understand concerns and be responsive. We also remain open and available to ensure that union leadership has the information that they need to fully understand the concerns that come to their attention so they are able to continue to support the educators and support personnel in Valley View School District. So as Dr. Mitchum shared earlier, we are continuing this conversation, and we recognize that when concerns are shared, it's very important that we listen. It's also very important that we look at those concerns in a larger context to see if there is more that we need to explore or reconsider or adjust, or if there is a greater understanding that we can bring to the issue so that those involved feel more comfortable or at least understand the rationale for why changes are being made or why a certain perception exists. So there's a detailed information report provided to you this evening, and it's available publicly on board docs as well. I'm going to highlight just the main points that are being presented in response to the concerns that were raised, and we're available for questions this evening or at any point in the future if any board member, community member, staff member wishes to discuss these points more in depth. One of the first concerns that was shared was regarding elementary class sizes, was regarding enrollment and certified staff. And the concern was that the amount of certified staff has decreased over the past 5 to 7 years. And so just a quick two charts for comparison. The enrollment trend in Valley View from 2011 to 2011-12 school year to this current school year, we've actually had a decrease in student enrollment of just over 1,000 students, 1,055 students. So despite that decrease in student enrollment, the chart on the right shows you the certified staff comparison. And from that same time frame in 2011-2012 to this current year, we've had an increase in certified staff of 146 full-time staff members. That breaks down to 94 certified teachers and 52 related service providers. And in that category of related service providers, that includes counselors, coordinators, deans, nurse, psychologists, social worker, speech, SRT leaders. In this current year, we added TLCs, which are teaching and learning coaches, and BCBAs, which are behavior analysts. So that's the context that we wanted to provide regarding that concern that we have cut certified staff, because the actual trend indicates otherwise, that we have in fact added. Another concern that was raised was regarding the projected elementary class size for the 18-19 school year. So the chart, or the table on your left, shows the projected class size averages for kindergarten all the way up till 5th grade. And so you can see that that ranges from an average of 21 in kindergarten to 28 in 5th grade. The perception that class sizes are at 30 and above, that may be true for some individual educators in certain buildings, because we do have some instances where we do have class sizes of 30 or above that are being projected for next year. And so if you look at the table on the right, you can see the breakdown by grade level and the total number of expected classroom sections. This includes all 12 of our elementary buildings. And then the total expected classroom sections over 30 students. So in our primary grades in kindergarten and 1st grade, you can see that we're projecting that none of our classes will be at 30 or above. And in fact, the average for both of those is at 21. In 2nd grade, we do have one section that we are keeping an eye on that is projected to be at 30. And that's just one section out of a total of 46 across the district. And then we have 3, 4, and 7 respectively at grades 3, 4, and 5, and that's about 6% ranging to 16% of our total sections. So enrollment is a fluid thing, and so we look at projections now. We do continue to monitor our enrollment, and if we see that class sizes continue to climb, we have an increase in student enrollment, we have an increase in students moving to buildings, we will make adjustments if necessary in the summer before the school year starts, or at our 10-day enrollment. So enrollment is a very fluid thing, and we could have students leave or come, and so we do keep a close eye on that because it is important to us that we continue to support in the instance that we do have to have a class size that is at 30 or above, and that we also take into consideration how we could use other resources to either decrease that class size if there's no other financially viable option to decrease that. Each building's unique in the number of sections that they carry per grade. So sometimes you're in a hard, tricky spot with numbers just by simple division if you have, 2 or 3 sections, where it wouldn't make sense to add a class and bring class sizes down to 12 to 15, but it may make more sense to leave, the certain number of sections and have our students be supported in the upper grades with other resources. Your microphone.
If I may add, as you look at these numbers from kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade, at the start of this administration in 2011, we made a commitment that we were going to ensure that the class sizes at our students' most formative years remained low. And that was based on the need to ensure that when kids transition from learning to read to reading to learn, which is around the third grade level, that we maximized our potential of ensuring that our kids were reading to learn at third grade level by keeping our class sizes as low as possible at our earliest grade levels when kids were at their most formative years. So that chart that Rachel put up is purposeful, and that is consistent with the trend from 2011 until today, so that if we have to have larger class sizes, which are not significant by any stretch of the imagination, we want to ensure that that happens after kids have made the transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And I also might add that when looking at surrounding districts, the class sizes that we project for our students are the envy of most districts in Will County and beyond, because we've made that commitment to ensure that we don't spare any resources as it applies to ensuring that we try to maximize our efforts in the classroom by keeping our class sizes low.
Another concern was regarding reduction in force, and Sharon Hawks had shared some comments on that when she brought that to action to the board, so she'll just make a few comments to follow up.
Thank you, Rachel. Just as an update on the reduction in force, just today we completed the callbacks for the involuntary transfers. For general ed, we had already completed special ed, and so our next step tomorrow will be starting recalling RIFs, or reduction in force staff members. We had 15 staff members that were reductions in force this year. Of those 15, based on what we currently have open, we know that we can place 8 of those. And then from there, we assume that we're going to place the majority. There may be 1 or 2 due to their certification and the specialty of their certification that we may not be able to recall at this point, but we do believe with resignations that we do normally get throughout the year that the majority of them will be recalled.
Another concern that was raised that evening was on the evolution of our elementary support model. And so this essentially is the idea that we're taking the resources that we have to support our elementary learners, we're not removing those resources, but we are refocusing them. We're targeting them and so that the same level of support is there, but it's being provided in a more targeted and purposeful manner. And so this is a large adjustment to our current system, yet we've based it on research, data, and we've based it on educator voice. And I'm going to comment on that briefly. The shift really encompasses 4 main points. We're taking the resources that we had with amongst our reading specialist pool, and we're looking to provide coaching support to improve the impact of core curriculum for all students, coaching support to implement interventions with the classroom, intervention and enrichment support for math within the classroom, and intervention and enrichment and support in ELA for both in the classroom and out of the classroom for those students who do require that tertiary level of intervention. So Mr. Herder, our Executive Director of Pre-K 5, did share this information in the action report on February 26th, and so I've linked that into this presentation so that that can be revisited if there's more questions about that. But essentially what he had shared regarding the rationale for these adjustments was that it aligns to our strategic plan, that we look at our district-wide goals to prioritize the areas of support to ensuring that we're supporting all of our learners. And so this doesn't just mean in one subject area or learners who are just struggling. It's looking at all of our learners. And that we also look on multiple subject areas, so not just ELA, but math, to say how we're supporting. The voice from educators was highlighted in that presentation as well. Voice that we had received from more than 70 educator representatives through our grade level reps was that coaching supports for universal instruction are valuable. Support for enrichment and math are necessary, and that we need support specifically for targeting reading recovery and literacy intervention. At the February 26th board meeting, we had educator representatives who came up to speak. We had a teaching and learning coach and an elementary teacher. We had a reading specialist and who also spoke from her perspective on how these were positive changes. And we also had a reading specialist who is a reading recovery teacher and lead teacher in training, and she also spoke to the benefits that she saw. The comments that they shared echoed the feedback that we have heard from our educators in terms of making this adjustment with the support. And then, of course, looking at the research in terms of having an intervention system that's balanced with universal instruction is of critical importance. So yes, many of our reading specialists were making gains with the learners that they were accessing, but we saw the most gains when they were pushing in the classroom and they were able to impact the core curriculum. We've also seen through the research and through the data and the time frame that we've had teaching and learning coaches in place that coaching supports educators and improves student learning. And we're seeing that not just from the research, which feels impersonal, but what we're seeing that as well from the impact from the learning that we're seeing with our educators who are engaging with our teaching and learning coaches, and the exciting growth that we are seeing in their classrooms compared to their peers in their grade level in their building, also compared to their peers in the grade level across the district. And then we also know through the research that the Reading Recovery Program is highly effective, research-based, and is proven over and over to have an impact on students when done well, when done with fidelity, for catching our learners as early as possible to get them back into the core curriculum and fill those gaps that they have on in their earliest formative literacy years. So what I alluded to earlier was that we have the same number of support staff, and they are available to teachers. They're just available in new roles with a shift in how that support is focused. We have a vast pool of experience and targeted support that I'm really excited to be used in such an intentional manner. There was a concern that those filling these positions were not experienced. And so I just present to you a couple bullet points to share with you that they very much are. All of our positions were filled with internal staff, and they bring vast experience and skill. 13 reading specialists were hired as reading recovery coordinators, all hold a master's degree in reading. 6 of our reading specialists were hired as teaching and learning coaches, and then 14 current or former reading specialists were hired as intervention and enrichment coordinators. And multiple staff hold bilingual certification as well as advanced level degrees, with some even having advanced level degrees in the area of mathematics. So this is really exciting to match these skill sets and these resources that were effective in many ways previously, to be even more intentional in connecting them with the educators and connecting them with the learners to have the greatest impact. So to break that down just quickly, and this was shared previously as well, we have the teaching and learning coaches, which approximately, there'll be 2 per school. It's a voluntary support where they push in, and they work side by side with teachers and then support them with impacting their core curriculum that impacts all students, not just in core curriculum, but also in intervention in the classroom. Our intervention and enrichment coordinators will have 2 per school in most cases, and then we have an example where a school will have 3. They push into the classroom to work with students. They pull out groups for separate skill instruction. They can target literacy and mathematics, and they can fill gaps for lower performing students, and then they can also extend and enrich for our higher achieving students that need that support as well. Reading recovery coordinators, we'll have approximately 2 per school, and we're beginning at 6 schools this year. And the idea that they are in a coordinator position allows us to have flexibility in assigning this resource where it is needed. And this is a one-to-one pull-out on a one-to-one basis with a caseload of students, and then pushing in for the other part of their day to support kindergarten and first grade with targeted small group instruction. So this is the really impactful support in our primary grades. And then the other one is our learning environment coordinator, one per school. It's push in and pull out individual students as needed, as well as supporting classrooms as a whole and supporting the school and development of the learning environment. Okay, so that was a very brief summary of what was shared on February 26th in regards to those supports, and so we're happy to answer any questions if you have additional questions about that as well. Another concern shared was regarding middle school leveled literacy intervention. We have completed a detailed analysis of this program, and this has been over a period of 3 years. We do see that there is student growth demonstrated from students receiving this intervention, but in terms of it having a dramatic impact, we have not seen that. In terms of the data, it shows that fewer than 50% of the students grew more than their similar achieving peers who did not have access to the LLI intervention. How it had been implemented in the past, students were removed from social studies to have access to this intervention. And we find that it to be really critical that the students have access to all their core areas, core content areas, but there are some learners who do need this support. And so as we move to block scheduling for the 18-19 school year, there will be the opportunity for buildings to utilize this intervention, provide this resource and training for teachers to provide this intervention where it is called for. And the final concern that was raised was regarding the middle school block scheduling, and specifically with careers and band programs. And I think we covered a lot of this, but I just wanted to reiterate that staffing for these programs is not changing. All students will have access to careers or band during the school day, and they'll have exposure to all the career areas over their 3 years in middle school. Previously, that was not the case when students were receiving academic support. Current constraints do not allow us to maintain all programs or add additional offerings and give time to increase access in all areas without cutting core instructional minutes and support opportunities. So if we had more time in the school day, for example, we could add a period of time if we had the staff to provide an elective period for students every day. We don't have the power to do that unilaterally, so certainly that is not something that was an option to us. So we're working inside of a very constrained box, and there are restrictions that allow us to operate under, where in order to maintain all of our current offerings with careers, with applied tech, with music, with art, and to give students access to those, we would not be able to increase access for art, for example, without cutting one of those other areas. And it was important to us to continue to maintain that programming. We are aware that adjustments will be required, and the teams of teachers are continuing these conversations at their building and with their teacher teams with district level support, and working through this in terms of how to best adjust curriculum, instructional practice, and then also working through the logistical considerations. Okay, I believe I've covered all of the main concerns that were voiced that evening, but I'm happy to provide follow-up either this evening or at additional time. And I've had multiple conversations with Claudine Sharko, our union president, and we'll continue to have those conversations. And we'll continue to provide whatever information is necessary or engage in dialogue and be open to hearing the feedback as we work through ensuring that we all work together through any changes that are occurring.
If I may conclude, the profession of education is a very fluid profession. We are constantly being confronted with change that is mandated. We are constantly looking at our data to determine whether or not the strategies we are implementing for our students are effective as measured by their growth and achievement. Education is very stubborn. It has been historically, and change is difficult. Hence, most districts don't engage in the change process to the extent that Valley View School District does. We understand that over the years has brought significant concern from many stakeholders. But we have never allowed that to paralyze us, and always seeking that which serves the best interests of our kids as measured by student growth and achievement, as well as their social emotional well-being. And so although we do know that this continues to cause concern for people, in our heart of hearts, the decisions we make are designed to support the best interests of our kids, again, as measured by their growth and achievement and their social emotional well-being. We understand that it's difficult, but the difference between those districts who maximize student learning and those who don't are the ones who are willing to take those risks for the sake of their kids, to ensure that we do what's best for them.
Okay, 14.8, Ms. Kinder again.
Okay. Final information report is 14.8, presenting two board policies for review prior to bringing them back for second reading and approval. The first is school board meeting procedure, policy 2220, and instruction, high school credit for non-district experiences, course substitutions, and reentering students, and that's policy 6310.
Okay, any questions? Okay, legal service.
No report.
AFT.
Good evening, Board of Education, senior leadership, and Dr. Mitchum. I apologize, I'm absolutely freezing, so I'm going to leave my coat on. If I could just make a few comments in response to your response to my presentation at the board meeting on March 26th. First of all, Dr. Mitchum, thank you for your kind words. You used the word tenacity in your description of me, which means quality or fact of being very determined with determination and persistence. I would probably say that any student, even the 40 that I currently teach, beyond being a union president of 21 schools, 1,900 members, from paraprofessionals to maintenance to nurses to security to specialists to the teachers. I am a teacher as well, of 40 students every single morning. I teach 7th grade social studies honors. I'm a history major, and I've been teaching history all 18 years in this district. One point that you mentioned, Dr. Mitchum, is my role as union president is not an easy one. What we've seen in Oklahoma, what we've seen in Arizona, what we've seen in West Virginia, and it was our Chicago Teachers Union, East St. Louis. I don't have access to data and assessment teams. I don't have access to a human resource department. I don't have a payroll department. I can't just turn around and ask somebody for numbers and money and things like that. What I do have as a union president is face-to-face conversations with the teachers and the people working in our buildings. One of the things I've done as a union leader is I feel that good leadership is not just sending an email. Good leadership is not standing behind a desk in an office. Good leadership is talking to the constituents and the people that you represent. We have a huge anti-union movement going on in the United States right now that's coupled by a Supreme Court case of Janus that's going to be decided very soon. I was born and raised in a union family. It's in my blood. I think that unions overall have received a bad reputation for what we do or what we stand for. But I want to talk about a couple of things that were mentioned here, and especially when it comes to social emotional learning. The responsive classroom was actually a union charge, because we sat down with Dr. Mitchum and Ms. Kinder repeatedly, And we kept saying, you know, we're seeing something in our schools. Something is going on. Our students are becoming more aggressive. Behaviors are escalating. You know, and I always, you know, I kind of make the joke that nobody comes to the union on a good day. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes I'm the first person in the line that gets the call when a teacher is injured. Or sometimes I'm the first person when a teacher is frustrated. Or I'm the first person that they call when a program maybe is eliminated. And I do speak with passion because I had an opportunity at one point to leave this district and go to another district, higher performing district, paid more money district. And I'll tell you the reason why I stayed here in Valley View. When I had the second interview, the administrator looked at me and said, "Are you ready to come to the majors?" And I'm a big baseball fan. Anybody knows I'm a Sox fan. Sorry, Cubs fans, but I will announce it publicly, I am a Sox fan. And that moment resonated with me, and I said, you know what? This is where I belong, in Valley View. Dr. Mitchum and I, and Ms. Kinder and senior leadership, we've had hard conversations. We've had great conversations. We've had conversations where we don't agree on things. And I do speak with passion. And sometimes I say, you know, maybe I'm not right for this job. I don't know. But I know why I entered the profession, why I'm staying in the profession, and why I'm trying to be the voice of the educators that I represent. And that's specifically why I chose Renee Calabrese and Adam Thas that evening, because that speaks volumes right there. These are two teachers in a classroom who wanted to express to the Board of Education how they felt about certain issues. I do have some concerns or questions about some of the data that was presented this evening, but I'm going to, you know, I would like to continue that conversation this week, because you're right, Ms. Kinder, we have had several conversations since that board meeting. But again, as mentioned, sometimes perception is reality. And so, again, my job is very difficult. You know, even if I come out, what Dr. Mitchum said, with a fair, honest, good contract, I'm still going to have dissenters, I'm still going to have critics, and that's fine. That's the role of leadership. You know, the higher up you go, the more critics you get, and I'm okay with that, because that's what I signed up for. But I just wanted to respond. Thank you, first of all, for taking the time to listen. Obviously, it started a conversation. Ms. Kinder presented you with a very thorough and detailed explanation. Member Gilbo, you asked a lot of great questions. And so that's all we want to do, is be able to just keep those conversations more active. One of the things that I've actually discussed with the executive board is every time we guys say AFT report, all we say is no report. And that's going to change, because we do have a lot of things to say, and we're doing a lot of good things. And going along with that, I just wanted to mention from the AFT, or if we can move into Valley View Council, I think that has to come from the president. But we do have 6 scholarships. 3 are going to BHS seniors in the form of $1,000 each from the Valley View Council, our union ourselves. Okay, at the teachers, their dues, what they pay union dues for. And then the other 3 are going to go to Romeoville High School for 3 graduating seniors. So that's a total of $6,000 coming from the union. We also have on May 9th our union elections. I am also running again for president, and I have 3 people running for vice president, and then several people running for building reps and special categorical reps. And again, I also wanted to say too that my reps also express concerns and bring concerns and ideas to me as well. So I don't want us to always feel that I am working in this microcosm, because I really don't think that I am. But, you know, again, my role is to make sure that the empowerment and the passion is there from the teachers. So I do want to say thank you. I know I was very passionate in our last board meeting, but Dr. Mitchum knows, and he's seen me in many a meeting. Sometimes, you know, I just have to say something that comes off very strong to me. So if there are any questions from the board while I'm here, I'd like, if you want me to answer them now. No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudine. I also just wanted to say that I respect your passion and I respect your commitment, and my offer always stands to be a resource to you. You said you don't have access to data and assessment department or HR department. Whenever you hear concerns, even if it's just one individual, and you need information to help make sense of that concern, we are a resource to you. And that offer remains. It's always been there, and we will listen and we will respond. And if there's a problem, we will go about it together. And we've had that relationship in the past, and I hope we can continue to have that. But please use us as a resource, because I know you're in a very tough position, and leadership is a very complex thing. So that offer stands, and thank you for your passion and commitment.
Thank you.
Valley View Council, any report? That was it. Valley View Office Personnel Council, any report? Thank you. Any old business from the board? Any new business from the board? Any questions from the public on the actions that we have taken tonight? Any announcements from the board? Any announcements from the administration?
I'd just like to say, I feel like today was a long meeting, but it was a very productive meeting. And I appreciate all the input from the teachers. I appreciate all the input from the administration. I appreciate the input from the union, specifically Ms. Sharko. I firmly believe that leaders really don't make all the decisions. In fact, I make less of them than people would perceive, but I do think it's important that I own them. And so that every decision that's made in this district is not made by me, but every decision that's made in this district is owned by me, and I think that's my responsibility, and I appreciate all the work that all of you have done in support of this district for the betterment of our children. Thank you.
Any announcements from the public? Could we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you for attending tonight.